Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, and welcome to tonight's stream where we're going to be previewing this weekend's 2022 Dutch Grand Prix. Hope all you guys are well after the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. Where it was a pretty weird weekend looking back because qualifying didn't really feel like qualifying because of the amount of grid penalties we had, and it wasn't very exciting because we already knew there was, 7 drivers taking a penalty and would be starting from the back or near the back of the grid. And then the race on Sunday was a bit weird as well, especially in how, Verstappen not just won the race from 13th or 14th on the grid, but did it so easily, even before half distance of the Grand Prix. So yeah, it was a pretty weird weekend at Spa. It was an interesting weekend, no doubt about it. It wasn't a boring weekend, but was a bit weird. And we'll see whether maybe that happens again this weekend at Zandvoort. We are expecting a lot less penalties this weekend, that is for sure. In fact, I'm expecting there to not really be any grid penalties for this weekend's race. One, because the power units don't take as much of a pounding around here, because the lap is a lot shorter and it's a lot more of a tight, twisty track. And if you start from the back here because of a grid penalty, then it's going to be pretty hard to make your way through the field. I mean, you can overtake here, that is for sure. We saw at times in last year's Grand Prix that an overtake is possible into turn 1, but it is still pretty hard to make an overtake work. So yeah, hopefully we'll get no grid penalties affecting qualifying in a big way, like last weekend. But great to be back at Zandvoort. Obviously, the atmosphere last year was fantastic. Max Verstappen, the home driver, got pole position and won the race last year, which definitely helped the atmosphere be as great as it was. And I'm hoping, because last year's race wasn't great, it was okay considering the track layout. I think we actually got a tad more overtaking in last year's Grand Prix than I expected. And with these new cars, they can follow a lot better. And with a extended DRS zone, which I will get into later in this stream, which is being trialled, I think, for practice 1, it could be an exciting Grand Prix on Sunday. So yeah, we'll see what happens. There is a threat of rain as well for this weekend, but it is probably going to be dry mostly this weekend at Zandvoort. But let's hope we have a good weekend, and hopefully you guys are all doing well, and hopefully no matter what time it is in your part of the world, no matter where you're from, you're all having as best a day as you could possibly be having, given whatever circumstances you are going through. And what we're going to be getting into tonight is obviously going through the teams, previewing how I think they will get on this weekend. And also, we're going to get into a couple of topics. This stream isn't going to be probably as long as the preview I did for the Belgian Grand Prix weekend a week ago, because the other topics I'm going to get into aren't as deep, I guess you could say, as the other ones I got into a week ago, which was obviously the Daniel Ricciardo news, and I think also the technical directive stuff, which we will kind of discuss tonight as well. But yeah, what we're going to do is get into the teams. I'll look at how I think they'll get on this weekend, and then we'll get into as well Binotto, the Ferrari team boss, talking about how maybe Red Bull, in his opinion, might be going over the budget cap. We'll be getting into Fernando Alonso's comments about the reaction to his comments over team radio from the British media. And finally getting into the track itself and looking at an onboard lap to look at just what the track offers. But also, whilst the onboard lap plays, which I'll play later, and also I'll show where the extended DRS zone will be trialled for practice 1, I'm going to show what parts of the track should suit, what parts of the track will suit a certain team over another, or should, at least, coming into this weekend. But before we get into the teams, let's get into the championship standings coming out of the Belgian Grand Prix. So, on the driver's side, Max Verstappen leads by 93 points from Sergio Perez in second, Charles Leclerc third, and it's going to be pretty tough for Leclerc to finish in P2 because of the way he's being treated by his own team. Carlos Sainz in fourth, only a point ahead of George Russell in fifth. Lewis Hamilton in sixth, and then you got Norris in seventh, Ocon eighth. Alonso made his way up to ninth in the Belgian Grand Prix, ninth in the championship with his 10 points that he scored, and Valtteri Bottas has dropped down to P10. On the constructors' side, Red Bull are 118 points clear of Ferrari on the constructors' side, and Red Bull are going to win the constructors' championship probably around the same time that Max Verstappen wraps up officially the drivers' championship. Mercedes are third, still not that far behind, to be honest. Ferrari only 41 points, and I still think Mercedes have a good chance of catching Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship before the season is over. Alpine have pulled out a gap over McLaren of 20 points now in the battle for fourth between Alpine and McLaren. Alfa Romeo still in sixth, haven't scored a point since the Canadian Grand Prix, which was nearly 3 months ago. And then not Alfa Romeo, Haas are then in P7, who are not in good shape at the minute. We'll get more so into that later on. AlphaTauri did score a couple points at Spa, but they stay in 8th, but they do close a gap to Haas ahead of them, and Aston Martin closed the gap to the two teams ahead of them as well, after Sebastian Vettel finished 8th at Spa, but still Aston Martin in 9th. And Williams obviously scored a point with Alex Albon at Spa, but they remain in in 10th. But I think we'll just go straight into the teams. And by the way, guys, as usual, as I go through the teams, let me know in the chat what you think of what I'm having to say. And let me know, how do you think the teams will get on, especially the top teams this weekend. Be interested to hear what you guys have to say in the live chat. But let's first get into the Red Bull team, who of course had their most dominant race win of 2022 last weekend at Spa. Not just the most dominant race win of the year, but their most dominant win probably since that race in Austria, I think in 2021, where Max Verstappen won the race by, I think it was 30 odd seconds from Lewis Hamilton. But really, what we saw at Spa was very reminiscent of the Red Bull team back in 2011, 2013. It was incredible, the pace that Red Bull had compared to Ferrari, Mercedes, and the rest of the field. And of course, Max Verstappen from 14th on the grid pretty easily won the Grand Prix and had, at times, a second and a half per lap advantage over the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. And the Ferrari was probably, on pace, the closest car to the Red Bull at Spa in the race. Obviously forgetting qualifying, where, clearly Ferrari were the closest to Red Bull in the race. But, Mercedes did improve in the race with their pace, but I still think Ferrari were the closest on pace to Red Bull during the Belgian Grand Prix. So Red Bull, can they keep this up this weekend? Well, this track is quite a bit different to Spa. Spa, obviously Sector 1 and Sector 3, it's really all about power and straight line speed and, not having too much drag on your car. We know the Red Bull, very good in those type of tracks, those type of sectors, whatever you want to call it. But here at Zandvoort, Sector 1, I guess you could say, is the quickest by far sector we have at this track. But there are still a couple very important corners. Turn 1, turn, I guess you would say 3 and 4, pretty important as well. I mean, they are not that, They're not the most important corners on the track, but they are pretty important. But yeah, the first sector, because obviously the exit, I think, from turn 4, you're then going flat out until you get to pretty much the end of the first sector time beam. It is a pretty fast first sector, but after that, it becomes a lot slower. The middle sector, I would say, is kind of a medium speed sector, and then the final sector is kind of slow speed combined with high speed. So I guess you could say medium speed overall. So it's not going to be playing into Red Bull's hands as much as what we saw at Spa, where in the race, Red Bull were, I think in Sector 1 and Sector 3, they were at least 0.3 of a second quicker than Ferrari in those power sectors, and at times even half a second quicker in those power sectors. So, sorry, that's not going to play as much of a role for them, an important role for them this weekend as it did at Spa. I think Sector 1, Red Bull will probably be pretty strong in that sector because, again, of how fast it is. But really, I think if Red Bull are not going to be the quickest team this weekend, I think it depends a lot on how the car is handling in the middle sector and towards the beginning of the final sector as well. But especially the middle sector. If Red Bull can keep very good speed in that middle sector compared to Ferrari, then Red Bull will be fine this weekend and should win the Grand Prix. My prediction is that Max Verstappen will win the Grand Prix this weekend because obviously it's his home Grand Prix. We saw last year where I don't think actually the Red Bull was on pure pace the quicker car compared to Mercedes at the time. Max Verstappen pulled out a special lap in qualifying and then really in the race did such a great job to hold back Lewis Hamilton, who was looking very quick in the race a year ago. So I think that'll be kind of similar this weekend with Verstappen, that obviously it'll be a lot closer between Red Bull and Ferrari. Ferrari will probably be right on pace with Red Bull, at least in qualifying. And Max will, if he's going to get pole position and win the race, he's going to have to pull out something pretty special, which we know he can. We saw it last weekend, but also with his home Grand Prix this weekend, we know that most drivers on the grid, when the home Grand Prix comes around, they do tend to pull out something for the home crowd. So I do think, even though it'll be a lot closer between Red Bull and Ferrari this weekend, I do think it will be still Max Verstappen winning this weekend's Grand Prix, because I still think even if Ferrari were to have a faster car in qualifying, I still think Max Verstappen, because of the shorter lap, meaning the gaps will be closer this weekend, even if Ferrari had a faster car in qualifying, I still think Max has enough pace and talent to deliver a pole position lap at Zandvoort this weekend. So Max Verstappen, I think, will still win the Grand Prix. But again, Red Bull will not be as quick as they were at Spa, because with Ferrari, the big reason why they were so slow at Spa was because they had to raise their car a lot higher because of the some of the rough, bouncy parts of the track at Spa, such as, I think, the Stavolo corners, where Ferrari was struggling a lot with the chassis and the just the ride height of their car and the bouncing. That won't be as big of an issue this weekend for the Ferrari team, because, I mean, Zandvoort is bouncy to a certain extent, but it's nowhere near as bad as it is at Spa. So yeah, I don't think that'll be anywhere near as much of an issue for Ferrari. The technical directive, by the way, should be a lot more effective here in seeing what effect it has had on the teams that maybe were flexing their flaws before the technical directive came into force last weekend at Spa. So yeah, it will be closer this weekend. I don't think you're going to see Red Bull a second and a half quicker in the race on Sunday. If he was, then I think we could say 100% for sure that Max Verstappen, or at least Red Bull, are going to win every Grand Prix between now and the end of the season, if that does happen again this weekend and in the race on Sunday in Holland. But I don't think that'll happen. I don't think they'll have that quite of a pace advantage compared to Ferrari. But yeah, still looking very good for them. And I still think Max Verstappen will get the victory here at Zandvoort. For Sergio Perez, don't expect Perez to be too special, because last year wasn't quick at all here. He got knocked out in Q1, I think in 17th place, Perez. and then came through with a good drive to finish in, I think it was P7, I think it was, in the Red Bull, which was a pretty good drive considering how hard it is to overtake here. And there was a couple overtakes he made. I think one on Lando Norris that was really, really good around the outside of turn 1. And then going into turn 2 and 3. But yeah, don't expect as good a pace from Perez this weekend as we saw at Spa. I mean, at Spa, it was definitely helped a bit by the Red Bull car being as quick as it was. But I just don't think this is going to be as good of a track for Perez as, you know, Spa was and as Monza will be next weekend in Italy. So it should be really Max Verstappen, the main man at Red Bull. Perez will probably be at best contending for the last place on the podium, I'd imagine. But yeah, still looking good for Red Bull again with Max Verstappen being as great as he is. And I'm sure he'll pull out something special this weekend for his home fans. Let's get into some stats regarding Red Bull. So Max Verstappen won, as you guys may know, last year's Dutch Grand Prix. Also, Max has won 9 out of 14 races so far in 2022, with Red Bull winning 10 races in total. And it has been, statistically, a dominant season for Red Bull. But when you actually watch or look at this season in context, it has not been as easy as it may seem. But also, this final stat I have at the bottom is very important to remember. Max needs to outscore P2 in the World Drivers' Championship, which currently is Sergio Perez, by 37 points in the next 3 races to win the World Drivers' Championship. So, if Max wins this weekend, next weekend, and then in Singapore, and Perez finishes 3rd, say this weekend, next weekend, but then finishes 4th in Singapore. Let me just make sure I've got the calculations right there. Actually, hold on. So, let me do that again. So, if Max wins this weekend, next weekend, and in Singapore, and Perez, say this weekend, finishes 4th, then finishes 3rd at Monza, and then finishes 5th in Singapore, then I think Max would be then world champion at the Singapore Grand Prix. So we'll see. We'll see whether that does happen for Max Verstappen. Most likely, I think he'll win the driver's title, probably at the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, because I think if he wasn't to win it at Singapore, he would probably then only need for the Japanese Grand Prix like a 5th place finish or a 4th place finish to officially wrap things up. He needs to come away from the Japanese Grand Prix with, I think, a 104-point lead, if I'm correct. Correct in saying that. 104 points at least will see him be world champion. So we'll see if Max Verstappen does indeed come away from Singapore or the Japanese Grand Prix with the World Championship. But one thing is clear to see and to say is Max Verstappen is going to win the Drivers' Championship very, very soon. There is no doubt about that. Probably in the next 5 to 6 weeks or so. But now let's move on to the Ferrari team. And this picture, by the way, that you just saw briefly, that was Carlos Sainz. Let me actually just get it back up on screen for you guys, because it is Carlos Sainz's birthday today. Let me just get it back on screen. There you go. It's, Carlos Sainz's birthday today. So, happy birthday to Carlos. And hopefully, with it being, his birthday now, hopefully that means he'll have a good weekend, because at Spa, I don't think Carlos really did that badly at all, to be honest. Obviously started the race on pole position. I thought did very well to get ahead of Perez in qualifying, so he started the race on pole. And then, if you look at his race performance, I mean, yeah, the pace compared to Verstappen was really bad, but I don't think Carlos would have been really... I don't think Carlos really could have done anything about that as a driver. It was really down to the car. And we know, of course, that Max Verstappen is a better driver than Carlos Sainz. So we can't say, well, Carlos should have performed better because maybe, he can compete with Verstappen. We know that most times than not, that Max Verstappen just is better than Carlos Sainz, and that Carlos just cannot compete with the speed and absolute raw talent that Max has. But yeah, I thought it was still a good weekend driving-wise from Carlos. He did the best he could with what was a pretty poor Ferrari car at the Belgian Grand Prix. And coming to this weekend's race, I mean, we'll see how he does. Last year's race wasn't great for him. I think he qualified in 6th place, I think it was, and then he ended up dropping back, I think because of bad tyre wear in the end. But he should be okay this weekend. There should be a decent track for him. Don't see why it couldn't be. And then, yeah, for Charles Leclerc, hopefully will bounce back this weekend. He hasn't actually finished, by the way, ahead of his teammate Carlos Sainz in a Grand Prix since the Austrian Grand Prix, which was, almost 2 months ago? In fact, I think since the Spanish Grand Prix, he hasn't finished ahead of Carlos Sainz except for that Grand Prix in Austria. So it just shows you how unlucky Charles Leclerc has been. And yes, of course, Leclerc did make a mistake in France, but most of the time, 90% of the time, since that Spanish Grand Prix, Leclerc has been cost just so many points by his team. But coming to this weekend's race, like I said, with Red Bull, I don't think Ferrari will be anywhere near as bad as they were in Spa. They should be able to run their car a lot closer to the ground this weekend, which should allow them to be a lot quicker compared to Red Bull. Because again, as I actually got into in my video on Tuesday about how or why Max Verstappen and Red Bull were so much quicker compared to Ferrari in the Belgian Grand Prix, I showed some analysis from Automotor and Sport about how Ferrari had to raise their car a lot more, I think, compared to Red Bull because of some really harsh bumps that were affecting their car, their chassis at Spa. And again, this track, not as bad when it comes to bumps. So Ferrari should be able to run their car closer to the ground, and they should be closer to Red Bull. Qualifying, really, if they're going to win this weekend, qualifying is where they need to execute. If they don't get pole position, I don't think Ferrari win the race at all. To be honest, even if they do get pole position, there's of course a great chance they might not still win the race. But if they're going to win this weekend, they have to get pole position. There is absolutely no other way of looking at it because of the way the track is. If you've got pole position here at Zandvoort, it's going to be, again, very hard to overtake. And the only way a team is going to beat them in the Grand Prix, if they do get pole position and lead the pack away into turn 1, is if they get outdone on strategy. Now, of course, Ferrari always get outdone, it seems, when it comes to that. But if they're going to give themselves the best chance possible to win the race, then pole position they must get. Again, if they don't get pole position, they are not winning the race at all, because we know that on race day they are always worse compared to what they do in qualifying. It's actually pretty rare they end up with a better race result than qualifying result do Ferrari, and that's been the case really for the last 5-6 years with this outfit. But yeah, Ferrari, they'll be closer. They'll be a lot closer, I think, to Red Bull. Certainly in qualifying, I think it'll be very close. But again, if they don't get pole, then I don't see how they win. And it could be, if you're a Ferrari fan, I think you should definitely be worried about this. It could be a very barren run, I think, for the Ferrari team coming up. Because if they can't get a win here this weekend, and then say they can't get a win in Singapore, a track that really should suit their car a lot better than a lot of the tracks remaining on the calendar, then Ferrari might not win a Grand Prix again for quite a while. Probably until the start of next season at the earliest. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I'm hoping, to be honest, and I know I absolutely rip Ferrari to shreds about how shit they are, how comically bad they are as a team, but I really hope this weekend they can give us some sort of battle, because it would be pretty boring if Max Verstappen and even Perez, locked out the front row here at Zandvoort, because if that did happen, then Red Bull would just waltz to a 1-2 finish pretty easily. So I am hoping the Ferrari do really get in the fight. And to be honest, I think the best thing for the race would probably be Ferrari getting pole position, because it then would give us a proper competitive, fight for victory. Because Ferrari, we know in the race, even if they got pole, it wouldn't be, job done. I mean, this is the same team that at Monaco locked out the front row and still didn't win, which I'm not sure how you can possibly lock out the front row at Monaco and not win the race. That's pretty special thing to do. Anyway, let's go on to some stats regarding Ferrari team. So Charles Leclerc finished 5th in last year's Dutch Grand Prix, despite having so many pole positions this year. I think 8 or 9 pole positions this year out of 14 races. Ferrari have only won 4 out of the 14 races in 2022. Ferrari, though, do have historically a good record here at Zandvoort. The last win in Zandvoort was in 1983 with René Arnoux. Remember, the last Dutch Grand Prix before last year was 1985. And Ferrari do have, I think, 8 wins here in F1 and then 1 non-championship win, I think, in 1951. But this has been, whether it's the country, because they have raced, I think, in other places, not just Zandvoort, in the country of the Netherlands, but it is a good place for Ferrari historically. Will it be a good place for them this weekend? We'll have to see really in practice, but it should be a lot more competitive from them. But I think actually one thing we will get onto now, instead of waiting to get onto it, let's get onto some quotes from Matteo Binotto that I saw earlier, which was talking about how Red Bull, because obviously it's been rumoured that Red Bull are going to be bringing a lighter chassis, a lightweight chassis for their car, possibly at the Singapore Grand Prix. There's been some talk that, how can they do this when, there's a budget cap? And this is what Binotto had to say about it, I think today at the track. So let's get into it now. So he said, quote, "I think we've already mentioned it through the season because now we've got a technical, sporting, but as well financial regulations which can make differences between teams in the way that they are integrating, optimizing, and executing it." And then he goes on to say, and we know that we need to have a very strong FIA to make sure that they are properly focusing, because otherwise the regulation itself would not be fair and equitable. So now I cannot judge on the Red Bull for their lightweight chassis because maybe not. And then he goes on to say, as Ferrari, we will never be capable of introducing a lightweight chassis or a different chassis through a season simply for the budget cap. I would be very surprised of other teams being capable of doing it. And if they are, again, it's back to the regulation itself. Is it fair enough? Is it equitable enough? Is the policing sufficient? It's big question marks. To be honest, looking at these quotes, Binotto isn't really saying anything here. He's just basically like, well, it's interesting that, that Red Bull possibly are bringing this lightweight chassis. Now, by the way, Christian Horner, the Red Bull team boss, is now denying that Red Bull are going to be bringing that. I mean, we'll see whether that is the case, so they don't end up bringing it. Maybe they're going to bring it for next season, which probably would be the smarter thing to do with Red Bull. I think if I was Red Bull, I would not bring any more upgrades this season. Same for Ferrari, same for Mercedes. I don't see why any of those teams should be bringing any more upgrades this season. And the reason I say that is because Red Bull, they're going to win the championship in 3 or 4 races anyway, even if they don't upgrade their car. Ferrari have lost the championship, and Mercedes, in my opinion, need to go with a completely new car concept for next season. So don't really see why anyone, especially the top teams, should be upgrading their car at this point. But yeah, that's what Binotto had to say on the issue. I mean, obviously, the budget cap was increased because of inflation. It was an inflation surcharge, I think it was, that they added. So, maybe Red Bull, if they did bring it, would still be within the cap. But what do you call it? But yeah, I think Red Bull, if they're not going to bring it this year, most likely they'll bring it for next season. Apparently, the lighter weight chassis is worth an extra 0.3 of a second, so Ferrari better hope that Red Bull don't bring it before the end of the season. But talking of Mercedes, let's get on to them now. And yeah, last weekend was a pretty tough Grand Prix. Sorry, I just saw a comment in the chat from OVT saying, "Oh my god, you have a new channel, wow." Not sure what you're saying there. I'm not sure what you mean by that, unless you used to follow my old channel like 5 years ago, but there you go. Anyway, yeah, Mercedes had a poor weekend, obviously, at Spa. 7th and 8th, I think it was, in qualifying, and they were 1.8 seconds at best off pole position. And then in the race, they were a lot better. George Russell, a lot of the time, was quicker than the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. And really, if Russell was able to stick with the two Red Bulls and the Ferrari of Sainz through the first into the race, if he was able to stick a lot closer to those group, or to that group, he probably would have ended up on the podium, because again, the pace of the Ferrari was so bad, and the pace of the Mercedes in the heat, and we know the Mercedes in hotter conditions and also in the race is a lot better than it is in qualifying. By the way, this picture we'll get onto in a moment in regards to these two, but good to see they've patched things up after what happened at Spa. But yeah, the pace of the car was a lot better in the race, so it wasn't too bad of a Grand Prix, really. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton's retirement was disappointing. If Lewis Hamilton had finished the Grand Prix and had got his way past Fernando Alonso, which would have put him up to 3rd place, Hamilton probably would have had a good chance of finishing 3rd in the race last weekend. So, yeah, disappointing there. But this weekend, Mercedes should be a lot quicker and a lot closer compared to the front two teams than they were at Spa. Because at Spa, I think they were 1.8 seconds behind Max, who was on pole. And then compared to Carlos Sainz, the quickest Ferrari, they were about 1.2 seconds off, 1.1 maybe seconds off. So, yeah, it was a massive gap in qualifying. And even though they did close it in the race, it was still a poor weekend for them. I'm just going to quickly look, though, at the weather forecast, which is important when it comes to Mercedes for this weekend. So it is looking like it's going to be a pretty hot and sunny weekend. So on Saturday, thankfully for Mercedes, it is full sunshine, bit of wind, but 23, 24 degrees Celsius. And then probably sun and cloud on Sunday with, was it 24, 23 degrees Celsius being the air temperature. So that should help Mercedes a lot more, because at Spa on the Saturday, it was a lot cooler than really for dry conditions than you would really want, especially if you are Mercedes. So that will help them this weekend, because we know in the cooler conditions, Mercedes just cannot fire their tyres up, meaning they don't really have the grip in qualifying to really compete with Ferrari and Red Bull. But two other reasons why they'll be a lot closer here is because it's a shorter lap, so the gaps will be closer anyway between all of the cars. And thirdly, this track layout does suit them a lot more than Spa. At Spa, they were just too slow on the straights. Straight line speed's not really that important here at Zandvoort. But also, there are some fast corners here that they'll, I think, handle well in, especially in the first sector. or towards the end of the first sector, the beginning of the middle sector. So Mercedes will be probably in qualifying at best 4th and 5th, maybe still on the 3rd row, 5th and 6th, but they will be a lot quicker this weekend. And I also think that on Sunday, I think they've got a good chance of a podium, especially if it's still, pretty hot, and the tyre wear is significant enough like it was at Spa. Then I think we could see Mercedes get a podium, especially if Ferrari are not lapping that quickly in the Grand Prix on Sunday. So don't count out Mercedes this weekend for a podium, because I think it's definitely possible. As long as in qualifying they don't get out-qualified by a midfield team, which you never know, could happen. This man, Fernando Alonso, he could end up head of the 2 Mercedes. We know how great he is over a single lap, and we know, well, we've seen this season how great he's been over a single lap, but as long as they qualify 5th and 6th, and they are as close on pace as I think they will be this weekend, then I think they've got a good chance on Sunday of a podium, which would be, I think, a pretty good result considering how poor they were at Spa. But let's now get on to some stats regarding the Mercedes team. Lewis Hamilton finished 2nd in last year's Dutch Grand Prix. Like I said, I thought he drove pretty well last year, but Max was just too good in the Red Bull. Mercedes have now gone 15 races in a row without a win. That is a very barren spell for them. That is the most barren spell for them since about 10 years ago, towards the end of the 2012 season and I think the beginning of the 2013 season, where they went, I think, 15 to 20 races without a win. So, yeah, been a very long time, considering how many wins they've had in the last 10 years or so. Lewis Hamilton also is on a pretty long streak. He's currently on, unfortunately for him, his longest streak ever without a win in F1. I think the longest streak he ever had was, I think, about 12, 13 races from, say, the end of 2008 and then halfway through into 2009. So, yeah, now he is, same as Mercedes, 15 races without a win, and that is now his longest ever streak without a win in F1. I still think he does have a good chance of winning a Grand Prix, though, before the end of the season, but we'll have to see whether it actually, the opportunity does present itself like it has done, kind of, so far this season. But let's quickly get into this Hamilton and Alonso stuff, because Alonso, after the whole thing at Spa, the contact and the reaction to what Alonso said, Alonso had something interesting to say, I think today at the track. And let's see what he had to say. He said, quote, "First of all, it's Lewis. He's the champion. He's a legend of our time." And he was basically here saying that, he has no disrespect for Lewis because, he respects him massively. And then he went on to say, and then when you say something, and I'm sorry to repeat this against a British driver, there is a huge media involvement after that. They've been saying a lot of things to Checo, to Carlos, to me. If you say something to a Latin driver, everything's a little bit more fun. When you say something to others, it's a little bit more serious, which, to be honest, is true. This is not really a British driver thing. It's really just a British media thing. Our media in this country, there are some great journalists out there, but the majority of our media is absolute cancer who, stir up anything for clicks, for, to sell newspapers and all of that. And yeah, I think a lot of journalists in this country are very vindictive, I guess you could say, and they do look to bring people down a lot. We're probably one of the worst countries when it comes to that. We don't celebrate people, the great sportsmen or people we have in this country. We don't celebrate those people really enough. And in fact, we tend to, not we, the British people, but the British media does tend to try and bring those people down because that's just the way they work. But yeah, that's what he had to say. Let me know, guys, in the chat. Do you agree with what Fernando had to say there And do you agree with what I had to say just then about the British media? Let me know in the live chat. And yeah, good to see these two have patched things up. And hopefully there'll be no more squabbles like that. I mean, we want to see them racing but not making contact because, you know, it does ruin things for us. But let's move on quickly. Before I come to you guys in the chat, let's move on to the McLaren team. And here we go. And yeah, last weekend was... It's hard to say with them because in qualifying, they had actually pretty good pace compared to Alpine and compared to really a lot of the midfield. A lot better pace than I thought they would have had. But in the race, they just didn't really go anywhere, which was a lot down to their straight line speed still not being good enough. Obviously, Lando Norris was stuck in that train behind Alex Albon towards the end of the race, so that's why Norris didn't get in the points. For Daniel Ricciardo, though, again, I'm not sure what happened. I didn't actually look into what happened with Ricciardo's race at the end there, but when he made his final pit stop, he just went absolutely nowhere in terms of pace. So they ended up, I think, 12th and 15th for the Belgian Grand Prix, which was a very bad result because Alpine scored 16 points for their P5 and P7 result at Spa. So McLaren really on the back foot after last weekend. This weekend, I think they'll be a lot better, though. Lando Norris, I think, will probably qualify 7th or 8th. I think the McLaren car will go a lot better here. It's a lot more of a McLaren track, you know, tight and twisty type of circuit. And Lando, in qualifying this season, has been pretty elite, I would say, considering the McLaren car has not been that great so far in 2022. So expect Lando Norris to be pretty competitive in the McLaren in qualifying. And because it's hard to overtake here, I think that'll probably lead to a 7th or an 8th in the Grand Prix, which will be a good result for him and hopefully a good result for McLaren. Ricciardo, though, who did out-qualify, interestingly, Lando Norris in last year's Dutch Grand Prix. Norris last year qualified 13th. Ricciardo, I think, qualified in P10, if I remember correctly. But yeah, Ricciardo, most likely, I think will be outside of the top 10. Maybe if he does get in the top 10, it'll just be 10th at best. But yeah, I think most likely he'll be outside of the top 10. If McLaren are gonna really finish 4th in the championship this year, then this man on screen, Lando Norris, is the man who is gonna, you know, take them to it. Because no disrespect to Daniel Ricciardo, but this season he hasn't been good enough and he isn't scoring enough points when he is finishing in the points. So yeah, if Lando Norris can get a consistent run going of finishing 7th or 8th for a few races, then that might, if Alpine start to drop off, which I'm not sure is going to happen really, but if it does happen, then Lando, if he puts that run together, might be able to drag McLaren back into 4th place in the championship. But realistically, I don't think that's going to happen. Alpine have a much better driver lineup right now. The Alpine car is a lot better than the McLaren car. And also, one thing that is very important that we are seeing at the minute is that even though McLaren's car has improved in pace in the last month or so, or a couple months or so with the new upgrade they brought to the French Grand Prix, it's very quick in qualifying, this car, the McLaren. But in the race, they do drop off a lot in pace. So that is something that is, you know, not good for the McLaren team. I mean, they will be helped with that lack of pace they have on a Sunday due to the track layout being, you know, so tight and it being so hard to overtake. So if Norris does get a very good qualifying result, then it may help him end up finish 7th or 8th. But yeah, the lack of pace on race day really is hurting them as well. But yeah, I think Norris will probably finish in 7th or 8th, like I said. Ricciardo, if he does finish in the points, it'll probably be 10th, maybe 9th at the absolute best. But to be honest, I don't see Ricciardo finishing in the points this weekend. And I think it'll be pretty tough for McLaren. Honestly, between now and the end of the season, I think it's going to be pretty tough for McLaren to finish 4th in the championship, because even if they get a good result this weekend, next weekend is Monza, and they are going to struggle at that circuit for sure, with it being so powerful in terms of straight line speed and its importance. And Alpine will be a lot more competitive there than the McLaren team. So, not looking good for McLaren in what has been a disappointing season for sure. But guys, let me know in the live chat, what do you call it? Let me know, how do you think the top 4 teams, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes and McLaren, how do you think they will get on this weekend? Obviously, I know McLaren aren't one of the top 4 teams in the championship, but, the top 4 teams that I've done so far. Let me know in the chat, what you think of all of that. And just let me know in general what you think is going to happen this weekend. And let me know what you thought of what Binotto and Alonso had to say on the respective things that I went into there. Would be great to hear what you guys have to say. But just want to say quickly that if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because I have a qualifying preview coming up tomorrow night, where I'll be going live at 6 p.m. UK time for that, which is about 2 hours after practice 2 finishes in Holland. And then on Saturday, I'm going to be live from 10:45 a.m. UK time to do practice 3 firstly, the practice 3 watch along, which will be going from 10:45 a.m. till 12 p.m. Then from 12 till 2 p.m. UK time, I'll be building up to qualifying, then doing a watch along for qualifying, which is 2 till 3 p.m. And then from 3 till probably 3:30, 4 p.m. UK time, I'll be doing a reaction to the qualifying session itself. Then on Sunday, I'll be live for basically the same times I was live at Spa on race day. Starting at 12 p.m. UK time, I'll be doing an hour and a half's preview for the Belgian Grand Prix itself. Then from 1:30 p.m., or I did for the Belgian Grand Prix, but, for this weekend, obviously, it's the Dutch Grand Prix. So let me just do that again. From 12 till 1:30 p.m., I'll be doing a build-up preview to the Dutch Grand Prix. Then from 1:30 till 4 p.m. UK time, I'll be doing we will be doing the watch along for the race itself at Zandvoort. And then from 4 till 5 p.m. UK time will be the race reaction itself. Reminder, the race on Sunday starts at 2 p.m. UK time. So if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for that content coming up. And as well, for everyone watching right now, if you haven't already, don't forget to smash that like button. And yeah, I know I said a few days ago, by the way, that I think I said what times I was going to be live for Saturday. I didn't actually check officially what the timings were for Saturday, and I was surprised to see that practice 3 and qualifying was starting an hour earlier than usual, because normally for the European races, you'll have practice 3 at 12 p.m. on a Saturday, British time, and then 3 p.m. British time for qualifying later that day. So, yeah. So an hour earlier for those sessions. But, as well, give me your top 5 predictions for the race this weekend. I'll go with mine. I'm going to go Max Verstappen to win. And then Charles Leclerc to finish in 2nd. Lewis Hamilton 3rd. Carlos Sainz 4th. And then Russell 5th. Perez 6th. I'll probably go for that for my top 6 overall. Yeah, let me know if you agree with that, guys, or disagree in the live chat. But let me get into your comments quick. Let's see what you guys have to say. Hello to everyone in chat, by the way. Great to see you all. McLaren from races. Lewis's engine took a good pounding. Driver on board revealed fluid leaks after the super bounce he had. I mean, yeah, Lewis might have to take a new power unit, but I've not actually officially seen anything to suggest that Lewis Hamilton will be taking a penalty for this weekend's race. So we will see. Hopefully not, because I think Mercedes have got a lot better chance this weekend of a good result with the higher temperatures, better track layout for them, and obviously smaller lap that'll bring gaps down. So it'd be a shame if Hamilton had to take a penalty of some sort. Nello Angelo says Mercedes seems to be in no man's land again. I think they should change their car philosophy for next year. The no side pod design seems to be limiting their options. Well, Toto Wolff, let me just find it, said that Mercedes' 2023 F1 car concept needs to be decided in the next few weeks. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. I know Russell said, I think it was in Hungary or France, which was about 6-7 weeks ago. I think what he said was they need to be careful in changing their car concept, and going for a different car concept doesn't necessarily mean they'll be quicker. I just think, when looking at this season, I just don't think it's worked, and I think they just need to admit it's not worked, and they need to go for a different design. And if I was Mercedes, I would copy the Red Bull side pod design, because I think the Red Bull side pod design is the most effective, I think, design on the grid. We've seen, how many teams have we seen copy it? McLaren, Aston Martin, Williams, and then if we look at the other teams, obviously Ferrari have their own side pod design. They could go that way, but I think Red Bull honestly have the best design side pod wise. And then Alfa Romeo and Haas, their side pod designs are basically taking after the Ferrari, and obviously AlphaTauri's side pod design is more so in the direction of Red Bull. So they just need to admit that they got it wrong and go the way of Red Bull, because if they just keep on with this car concept, it's not going to work. Normally, if you look at F1 history, when a team goes for a vastly different concept with a car in terms of design philosophy for a certain season, when it doesn't work, normally that team eventually has to give in and just conform to what is accepted to be either the norm or the best. So, yeah, they need to, the quicker they decide to go in the direction of a Red Bull or Ferrari in terms of side pod design, then the quicker they'll be back to the front of the field. McLaren F1 race says, biggest question of the weekend, which driver will Fernando get? Sassy with this weekend, Lewis got a right handbag in last time out. Hopefully no one, because we don't want to see drivers retiring from the race, because it does, when Lewis Hamilton retired from the race, it was a shame, to be honest, because it would have been better with him in the race with, fighting with Sainz for the podium. Eric asks, do you think Max will keep winning after he guarantees himself the World Championship? Well, if he wins the title in Suzuka in Japan, which I think he will, I think that's the race he'll do it at, then yeah, I think he will keep winning races. I think he'll win in Mexico for sure, because Mexico is a track that he's just so quick at. I know Ferrari will be pretty competitive there, but yeah, I just don't see how Max doesn't win that Grand Prix. Brazil, in the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, the Red Bull car should be the best suited to that circuit, and Max also is incredibly quick around the Interlagos track, so probably wins that Grand Prix. The only thing that could stop Max winning that race is probably if it rains massively, like it can happen, and Max somehow, ends up in the barriers, which is quite rare for him in wet conditions. But if we get an absolute, deluge, then you never know what could happen. And then Abu Dhabi, the final race of the season, he'll probably win that one as well. So yeah, he will end up, he's got 9 wins for the season now. I think he'll win this weekend, and he'll probably win next weekend as well at Monza. So that'll take him up to 11 wins for the season. He's probably going to end the season on 14 or 15 wins for the season out of 22 races, which would be incredibly dominant for him. Josiah says, depending on Leclerc, because those positions, that's assuming Perez stays second the whole time. Yeah, with that stat I read out, yeah, it does depend on that. It does. You are right. But I think there is a pretty good chance that Perez will finish second in the championship because of Ferrari's incompetence. I mean, Leclerc has only finished on the podium 5 times this season out of 14 races. 5 times in 14 races. Just shows you again how badly done to he has been, this season by his team. Labgara says Red Bull have beaten the stuffing out of me as a Ferrari fan, but let's be honest, it's Ferrari who have mostly beaten the stuffing out of me. Yeah, unfortunately. Eric says, I think it was Valtteri Bottas' birthday last Sunday. Yeah, it was, and that was not a good day for him. Josiah, there's also Chazzy. Did you see Inaki Rueda's excuse for pitting Leclerc last week? Yes, I did. If you guys don't know, what Inaki Rueda, the infamous strategist at Ferrari, the head strategist at Ferrari, he came out and said that they had to pit Leclerc because if they don't pit Leclerc for the fastest lap, then they are no longer racers, which is such a dumb thing to say. So what if you get an extra point for this Grand Prix? Ferrari are no longer in the championship fight. Another thing I need to get into, though, is I may as well just show this now. Let me find it. It's a thing with Binotto. How can I find it? Oh no, I tweeted about it, didn't I? I did a tweet. Let me just quickly show this on screen. So this is my Twitter account, by the way. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5. Yeah, this tweet I did. Nuclear levels of coke detected in Maranello. Matteo Binotto does not believe Ferrari's strategy has been a major issue. Quote, I think sometimes we are not doing mistakes when it may have been perceived as a mistake. Yeah. I'm just curious as to when will Binotto and the Ferrari higher-ups, when will they actually start admitting to problems and failures? Because, I mean, the only way to get better, not just as a sports team, but in life, is to admit that there are problems instead of just being like, no, everything's fine whilst everything around you burns to the ground, which is basically what Ferrari do. Don't ever admit that there's any problem. Just admit that, or just, make up just pointless excuses. Yeah. McLaren from Race says, Chaza, have you given thought to watch or to which ingenious way Ferrari will F up drivers' races this weekend? They need to up their game. Both cars actually finished at Spa. Lol. I haven't really given it much thought, to be honest, because I think they're pretty... At this point, they've made so many different mistakes, or so many... They've fucked their drivers' races up in so many different ways that I'm not sure there's many more different ways they can fuck their drivers' races up. The only thing they can really do at this point is just repeat the same mistake over and over again, which is, as you guys may know, the definition of insanity. But I have no doubt they'll commit more mistakes before the end of the season. Eric says, will Max go easy on the Ferraris once he's champion? I don't see why he would. Sparky Pete says, Binotto is saying that it's impossible to stay under the cap and do what Red Bull did. Well, Red Bull, in terms of the lightweight chassis, they haven't brought it yet, so it doesn't, we can't say whether Red Bull have gone over it yet because we haven't seen the evidence to suggest that. But again, people have to remember there has been, again, an inflation increase in the budget cap by, I think, what was it, $4 million? So, we have to factor that in as well. Sparky Pete says, it's all perspective. With Merc, standards is a horrible year. To F1 overall, standards is a good year. Willie Van Loon says, overtaking is not that bad in Zandvoort. Last year, Silverstone had 28 overtakes. Zandvoort had 25, so it's not that bad, I think. I mean, not really sure what to say to that. Yeah, last year in 2021, Silverstone may have had, slightly more overtakes when it should have a lot more, but I don't think that is truly indicative of how much easier it is to overtake at Silverstone. Like, we've had races at Silverstone where we've had way more overtakes than that, so yeah. I think objectively, Silverstone is a lot easier to overtake at than Zandvoort. Doob says we need more diverse F1 journalists at the Grand Prix. I mean, well, not just in terms of like what their backgrounds are, but in terms of like what they bring journalist-wise, in terms of what questions they ask, how they do their thing, rather than just having, about 40 or 50 of just the exact same person, pretty much. Doob thinks it'll be Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Hamilton, Sainz for the top 5. If Ferrari can attempt a comeback, could McLaren make a comeback too? To ask Eric, probably not. McLaren have gave up, I think, just way too much ground to the top 3 teams in the years that they were so bad, and I just don't think they're going to be able to make up that difference. Unfortunately, Prank says British media 100% agree. It's just anyone who is not British, not just Latin drivers. Take Max as an example. Doob says I think McLaren doesn't get enough criticism for their season, as it hasn't been great. Yeah, I mean they do get criticism from McLaren fans, but it hasn't been widely criticised, which it should have been, because McLaren was. I really think that they should have been making that step up to being a front-running team for this season, and I don't think there is a massive excuse, really. Rooksfoot says Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Russell, Sainz for his top 5 on Sunday. Sparky Pete says Max, Charles, Perez. Prank says Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Alonso, Norris. Mariska says Verstappen, Perez, Russell, Alonso, Leclerc. Sparky Pete says, we don't know if it's the sides that are bad, the no pods. It may be all the floors since it's the most important part. I am probably going to do, we'll see if I do this video, but I am probably going to do a video about Mercedes either towards the end of this year or going into next year about how or where they could probably improve and in what direction they need to go design wise. Laurie asks, could McLaren be somewhat excused because of the engine? I mean, kind of, yeah, but not massively. The Mercedes power unit this season, it's not the best. It's not the best. It's probably at best the 3rd best power unit out of the 4. I think you can make the argument it's the 4th and the worst out of the 4. But if you compare the horsepower difference from the best to the, say, Mercedes power unit for this year, it's probably only 10 to 20 horsepower at most, which is, still a significant amount, but it's not anything massive. So, if let's say if McLaren had a power unit as powerful as the most powerful on the grid, yeah, their pace would improve, but McLaren wouldn't be a front-running team still. The problem with their car is their design. The design of the car, it's not a bad car in terms of its design. It's just got, fundamentally, way too much drag on the car. If they had like the second or third least draggiest car on the grid rather than what they have right now, which is probably the draggiest car on the grid. McLaren, couple of, a low drag car with a lot more powerful power unit. Yeah, probably they would be a front running team, but I think it's more so the design of their car, which is why they're not quite in position to be a front running team. But I think we're going to move on, guys, to the rest of the teams. So let's get into the next team, which is Alpine. And yeah, what a weekend it was at Spa. They qualified on the Saturday 5th and 6th, and then ended up 5th and 7th in the race on Sunday. And if Esteban Ocon had not had his penalty, with Leclerc having his, kerfuffle with the 5-second penalty for speeding, they probably would have ended up finishing 5th and 6th as a team, but ended up being 5th and 7th. Still a great result. And yeah, I think this weekend they'll probably end up getting both cars in the points. This car, the reason it's the best overall midfield car is because it's suited pretty much to every track we come to. It's not really, it's not like we're going to come to a track and it's going to be way slower at one track and way quicker at another. It's pretty much as quick at every track on the calendar, which is why they are in 4th place in the Constructors and why they're going to finish 4th in the Constructors and why they deserve to finish 4th in the Constructors' Championship. And yeah, this weekend, I think Alonso will probably qualify in 7th or 8th place. Esteban Ocon was pretty good here last year, I think. He was in the top 10. I can't remember exactly where he was, but I think he was in the top 10. So expect both Alpines to qualify in the top 10. And then finish in the top 10. Probably at worst, it'll be 8th and 9th for both cars. But if Norris finishes in 6th, then, they score the same amount of points as McLaren, meaning that they maintain a 20-point lead. And then obviously next weekend at Monza, Alpine are going to be way quicker than McLaren. So looking very good for the Alpine team. And it's good to see Alpine being as good as they've been this season, because I was a bit worried about them coming into the season that they wouldn't be... certainly to start the season, I thought they wouldn't be too competitive, and I thought they'd get better as the season went on, but I didn't think they'd be anywhere near as competitive as they have been this season. But it's been a very good season for Alpine, and yeah, off the track, it's not been great at times for them, but on the track, it's been a very good season for the Alpine team. Next up, we will go on to Alfa Romeo. Obviously, at Spa, another pointless finish. Zhou Guanyu finished in 14th. Valtteri Bottas retired after being hit off by Nicholas Latifi on the second lap of the Belgian Grand Prix. And yeah, this weekend I don't really see a points finish. McLaren and Alpine, I think, are just too quick in qualifying, and I don't think Alfa Romeo can really make enough progress in the race to really get themselves into the top 10. And again, they've not had a points finish since the Canadian Grand Prix, which was almost 3 months ago. So I don't see Alfa Romeo really doing much of anything this weekend. And same for Haas F1, they had the slowest car at Spa. This new upgrade they've had has actually made the car worse somehow. Don't know how that's possible, but it's actually made the car worse, because before their upgrade, they were not as bad as they were in Hungary and as well at Spa. So yeah, not looking good for the Haas team, who are probably at best going to finish 7th in the Constructors. And to be honest, they've got to hope a lot that for them to finish in that position, because AlphaTauri and Aston Martin behind them will still have chances to score points and maybe leapfrog Haas F1 in the championship. But I think Haas might need to go back to what they had on their car, because I just don't think what they currently have on their car is really working. Because again, they were the slowest team at Spa. That has not happened at all this season. So yeah, that is not good whatsoever. Next up, we'll go on to AlphaTauri. And Pierre Gasly, I've got to say, last year was one of the stars of this week, of this Grand Prix last year. He qualified 4th and finished in 4th place in the AlphaTauri. And yeah, what a weekend it was for the Frenchman. Can he replicate that this weekend? Obviously, no, he's not going to. because the AlphaTauri nowhere near as quick, and I don't think the AlphaTauri is going to be anywhere near as suited to this track as it was at probably Spa, where he and the AlphaTauri team were a lot quicker at Spa than they were, or have been at a lot of tracks so far this season. So expect Gasly to probably be knocked out in qualifying in Q2 and then probably finish, I don't know, 11th, 12th, 13th in the Grand Prix. If he was, though, to get a point or two from the race on Sunday, then again, that would be great for AlphaTauri because they are only now 5 points behind the Haas F1 team in the Constructors' Championship. And if they were to finish in 7th AlphaTauri, even though this season has been quite a bit worse than last year in terms of the pace of their car and where they find themselves in the championship, if they were to finish in 7th, that would be I think a good year considering the car they've had. So yeah, hopefully for them they can bounce back and get into that position. Aston Martin, oh no, not them. Aston Martin, not Williams. Aston Martin had a good race, obviously, last weekend. Sebastian Vettel finishing in 8th. Probably could have done better. Probably could have finished, honestly, in 5th place had his pace in the final stint been a lot better than it actually was. And then Lance Stroll missed out on a point by, I think, a second or so, as Alex Albon was just too quick down the straights for Stroll to be able to overtake the Williams. But yeah, good weekend for Aston Martin. That's their 3rd points finish in a row since the French Grand Prix at the towards the end of July. So yeah, good race day performances at the moment for Aston Martin, but still, as we saw at Spa, their qualifying pace is still pretty poor, even though they started 9th and 10th on the grid because of all those penalties last weekend. They did qualify 14th and 16th, so I think this weekend will be a big struggle for them. Because, again, qualifying, they just don't have any pace in qualifying. And I don't think their car really is going to shine around a track like this. So what's going to happen is probably both Aston Martins are going to get knocked out in Q1. And then maybe Vettel or Stroll will finish in 12th or 13th. But it won't be anything that big from Aston Martin. And for Williams, great result for Albon last weekend. What a performance from Albon, but this weekend I don't see really how he can get anywhere near what he did last weekend. The Williams car, very quick in a straight line, and aerodynamically speaking, it is a lot better than it was earlier in the season after their upgrade that they brought to the British Grand Prix, which was, as I've said before, pretty much a new car, but I don't see them really having a good weekend around a track like this. Next weekend at Monza, though, watch out for Williams. They are going to be very, very strong. But those are all the teams. And I think I'm now going to get into... What's the last thing I need to get into? I'm going to get into quickly the a track analysis, I guess you could say, of the track here in Holland, the Zandvoort circuit. So let me just get out the track map. And here is your track layout. So you have a banked final corner that is flat out in the dry. In the wet, that is probably a proper corner. I'm not sure if we are going to get any wet weather, though, this weekend. It leads on to a flat out straight into turn 1, which is pretty much a hairpin. Is turn 1. A very good corner is turn 1. As well for overtaking, because you can take different lines through turn 1. Then you go into turn 2 and turn 3, which is a bit Mickey Mouse, I guess you could say. But turn 3, an interesting corner, which I'll show on screen in a moment. Then you go flat through turn 4, 5, 6, then into a fast right-hander of turn 7, and then turn 8 as well. And then it does start to slow down, towards turn 9 and turn 10. Then you have a DRS activation zone between turn 10 and 11. Short straight where you can't really overtake a car. Then 2 very slow corners for turn 11 and 12. Medium speed turn 13, and then it leads on to the banked final corner and the pit straight. You can see, though, through the banked corner and the pit straight, there is the DRS activation, which they are trialling for practice 1. I don't think it's going to stay for the whole weekend, because I'd be very surprised if it actually is a success. But let's get on to an onboard lap from Max Verstappen. And what I'm going to do when I get into this onboard lap is I'm going to talk about just what parts of the track, when looking at the front teams, what parts of the track are going to suit certain teams over others. Here we go. This is Max Verstappen on board, I think, a couple years ago in a Red Bull. So into turn 1 they come, and yeah, it's kind of a hairpin pretty much, this corner. And this sector, the first sector, is where the Red Bull is going to be at its best. Maybe not into these 2 corners. Saying that in qualifying, you do enter this turn 3 very quickly. And that corner, turn 3, pretty much you have to take an outside line there to get the best grip through the corner. Then you come through this flat out section. This is where the Red Bull will be very quick. And don't be surprised at all if Red Bull are the quickest team in the first sector. That corner we took a lot more quicker in qualifying. That's a pretty fast corner as well. And then we come into the middle sector. These corners is where I expect Ferrari to be a bit better, especially this left-hander. This is more of a corner the Ferrari likes than the Red Bull. Then you come onto the DRS activation point. And then into the 2 slow corners of turn 11 and 12. Again, this is where Ferrari will cope pretty well, especially on the exit of these corners. We know the Ferrari has very good drivability out of slow corners. And then this medium speed corner, pretty quick for a medium speed corner, but there you go. That's what it is. And then the flat out banking towards the end of the lap. And that is your onboard lap of the Zandvoort circuit. But if I just quickly go back to this. So, yeah, the first sector should suit the Red Bull better than the Ferrari. And then middle sector, it's probably going to be even between Red Bull and Ferrari. And then the final sector, Ferrari might just edge it in the final sector. It's going to be very close. But I think these 2 slow corners of turn 11 and turn 12 might help Ferrari quite a bit. So in terms of Red Bull versus Ferrari, it's going to be, I think, pretty much equal the pace between the 2 cars. It's going to come down really to the drivers. And if it does come down to that, then Max Verstappen is going to come out on top, which is why I predict Max Verstappen to get pole position and to win the Grand Prix this weekend. But for Mercedes quickly, Mercedes kind of will go well in the sectors that Red Bull also do. So sector 1, again, because it's quite high speed in terms of the corners. The higher speed corners are pretty much in the first half of the lap. I think Mercedes will be at their best really until we get to, say, turn 9, which is towards the end or the second half of the middle sector. And then Mercedes will probably struggle the most between turn 9 and turn 12. And then probably after turn 12 all the way to the start-finish line, Mercedes' pace will improve quite a bit in the rest of that lap. But Mercedes should go a lot better here than they did at Spa. But going to be a very close fight between the top teams here at Zandvoort. And this track is going to offer a very close fight, I think, between the top teams especially. But let me just quickly get onto to show these pictures, and I'll come back to you guys in the live chat to read out some comments. Probably be the final comments I read out, because I'm probably gonna end the stream in a minute because I have pretty much got through all I wanted to get through. Laurie Rastogi says, I hope Mick doesn't end up at Alpine. He's not good enough and will get trounced by Ocon. To be fair, is Mick good enough for Alpine? Probably not at the minute, I'd have to say. But in terms of his own career move, I mean, will he ever go to Ferrari? I'm not sure. I mean, Ferrari, I know, will be desperate to get him in that car, but he needs to illustrate that he is good enough, which we haven't seen yet. But I think a move to Alpine would be a good one, because I think Alpine, I mean, they've got a good car this year, probably the best midfield car on the grid. And I don't see any reason why next year Alpine are going to suddenly drop off in terms of pace. So it would be a good move for Mick. If Mick has the choice between being at Haas or Alpine, then if I was him, I'd pick Alpine for sure, because Alpine will be, in the next few years, a lot better than Haas. And I think Alpine will be pretty competitive in the midfield for the next few years, pretty much as well. Jules Elbers says, what I do not get is why nobody wants to drive for Alpine. They're a works team, but still, Piastri and Alonso would rather go to slower teams that do not produce their own engines. I think with Piastri, I think it was more so he just wanted the security of knowing he had a place on the grid for the following season. So I don't think it was more like he doesn't want to drive for Alpine. It was more like, he's already got a contract signed with another team. And then with Alonso, the reason Alonso, and I explained this, I think, last weekend, the reason Fernando is driving for Aston Martin next season and the season after is because Aston Martin do have, because they're hiring, or they have already got now working for them, all of those Mercedes and Red Bull engineers that they hired in the last year or so. I think Dan Fallow's been one of them, very good technical guy who was at Red Bull for years. They have Aston Martin probably more potential to become a front-running team than Alpine do, so that's why Fernando is moving to Aston Martin out of pure hope that Aston Martin will become a front-running team. But to be honest, I think Alpine will probably be, between now and 2026, the next new era of regulations. I think Alpine will probably come out of this next 3-4 years being the better team compared to Aston Martin. I think Alpine will be better than Aston Martin next season. Probably the season after, and then maybe, say, 2025, 2026, you'll see Aston Martin start to, properly rise up the grid. But, yeah. From a more short-term point of view, I think Alpine's a good place to be, really. And if it is true that Alpine are desperately trying to get Pierre Gasly in their car, if Pierre has the opportunity to go to Alpine, Pierre has to get to Alpine because he's not going to... he's got nothing else really to do at AlphaTauri. Mariska says it's just a joke this year. All teams of Merc engines have no pace. All teams of Ferrari engines have no reliability. AlphaTauri is nothing compared to last year. Only Red Bull looks like a top team this year. And then Mariska says, I almost forgot Alpine, but they look okay. Not super, but okay. I mean, the thing is, though, with the Mercedes-powered teams, a lot of the reason why they are not great is not necessarily down to lack of power. I mean, it is part of the reason for sure with Mercedes, with Aston Martin, with McLaren, not so much with Williams, who, I mean, the reason they're so quick in a straight line is because they probably don't have any downforce on their car compared to the front teams. But again, it's part of the reason, but it's not the majority of the reason why those teams are lacking pace. Josiah says, I reckon Merck will struggle because Hamilton will take a penalty. If he does take a penalty, then I think Mercedes, might struggle. Basil asks, if Haas get rid of Mick, who will they take? Or will they take Giovinazzi? Yeah, they will, I think, because Giovinazzi is going to be doing 2 practice sessions with the Haas team before the end of the season. The first one will be next weekend at Monza. He'll be doing practice 1 for Haas, and then he'll be doing practice 1 at the US Grand Prix in about a month and a half from now. And the final comment from Eric is, do you think Aston Martin will keep Lance Stroll? Well, obviously, because his father owns the team. But guys, that is it for this weekend preview. Hope you've enjoyed it. And reminder, again, I will be live tomorrow at 6 p.m. UK time. That is about 2 hours after practice 2, not qualifying, after practice 2 has concluded at Zandvoort. So make sure to join me for that, for your full in-depth preview for qualifying on Saturday. And then on Saturday, I'll be live from 10:45 a.m. all the way through till about 3:34 p.m. on Saturday, from 10:45 a.m. UK time until 12 p.m. I'll be live to do a watch along for practice 3. Then from 12 till 2 p.m. we'll be doing a build up to qualifying. 2 till 3 p.m. UK time I'll be doing the qualifying watch along, and then from 3 till 4 p.m. I'll be doing a reaction to what's happened in qualifying. Then on Sunday I'll be live from 12 p.m. All the way through till 5 p.m. 12 p.m. UK time I'll go live and for about an hour and a half do a preview slash build up for the race on Sunday for the Dutch Grand Prix. And then from 1:30 till 4 p.m, I'll be doing the race watch along, probably with Nib. And the race, by the way, starts at 2 p.m. UK time. So make sure to join us for that. And then for an hour after the race finishes, probably 4 till 5 p.m. UK time, I'll be doing a race reaction. And if there is enough to talk about from the race, then I will be doing either a video or a stream on Monday at 6 p.m. UK time. Either the video, if I do decide to do a video instead, that'll be uploaded at 6 p.m. UK time. But if I do a stream, it'll be again the same time. The reason I'm saying video or stream is because I might have work on Monday, meaning I won't be able to do a stream, but I would be able to just upload it as a video and just record it before, obviously, I went to work. So, yeah, we'll see when it comes to that. And we'll see if there's anything to talk about from the Dutch Grand Prix. Hopefully, there is. So if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for that content coming up. And for everyone watching right now, if you haven't already, don't forget to smash that like button to help the channel grow. And also, share this video and channel everywhere you can. And as well, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5. Join my Discord server, link below in the description for more content like this. And there's also a link below to a video that I uploaded on Tuesday about how Max Verstappen and Red Bull destroyed Ferrari in the Belgian Grand Prix a week ago. So make sure to go check that out if you want to know just why Red Bull and Verstappen absolutely destroyed Ferrari a week ago at Spa. But guys, thanks for coming along for this weekend preview. And until tomorrow's qualifying preview for the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.